Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions?
Sir?
Mr. Peter, you mentioned that the two victims were on a bike. Is it possible to say at the moment whether the shooters were on a bike as well? Is there any information to suggest that was the case?
Not at this stage. Obviously, the investigation is still underway. Initially, indications are that the offenders were on foot, but obviously we can't preclude the possibility that they did have transportation in the area, but obviously that's forming part of the inquiry.
Robert?
You mentioned that not believed either of the victims were members of an identified gang. Have you any idea what the motive could have been in this shooting?
I think it's too early to speculate on the motive. Obviously, the location where they were and the method which they were shot would give indications that there's some degree of gang involvement. But what I can say at this point is that we do not believe that the victims themselves are members of the gang.
With the victims, the intended victims, has the investigation so far shown that they were the intended victims or mistaken victims?
Again, it's too early to speculate on those matters. That there's not anything that would point us that way as yet.
How many times did each victim actually get shot? How many gunshots?
Yeah, I'm not releasing those details at this time. Suffice to say, both of them have received very serious and multiple injuries from the gunshot wounds.
It's understood that the victim with the neck shot is the family bringing in a specialist to possibly help in removing the bullet to see if he can walk.
Again, that's information that I can't and won't comment on this time.
And that's what the reception that the police received was, what they received up in St. Monica, because previously there has been an animosity when officers and press have arrived up there. What was it like on the early hours of Saturday morning? And what's the response you received from the public?
The initial response was not adversarial in any way. Officers canvassed the area, making house-to-house inquiries with people. I think it would be fair to say that the people in the area are rightly upset and indignant at the repeated volume of crime in that area and understandably frustrated. Obviously officers have to contend with that and factor that in when they're speaking with the community residents. But there was not any animosity that I'm aware of that was directed to the officers, albeit the residents are very frustrated.
Are the police in general concerned that there may be an upsurge in gun violence over the Christmas period, and are the police engaged in any talks, for example, for a ceasefire?
Well, I think phrases like ceasefire are not always that helpful. I appreciate that last year there was an increase in gun violence in December, and once again I'll re-emphasise the fact that we are reinforcing all our officers over the Christmas period. Will ensure that all reserves are also actively engaged with policing initiatives and ensure that during the Christmas period people are able to go about their normal Christmas shopping and the holiday period passes without any increase in violence. But clearly we are conscious that this time of year, certainly last year, was a time where there was a heightened increase in violence, but there's nothing to suggest that should be repeated this year, and we will ensure that our resources are deployed appropriately.
In relation to the bike that the two victims were on, is it possible to say when that was stolen and where it was stolen from?
I can get those details to you after the briefing. I don't have those immediately in hand, but I will get those to you.
Are the victims known to the police in past situations?
Yeah, would be fair to say that they're known to the police, but again, emphasising they're not members of an identified gang.
Is this a new term? Are people that are outside of the gang realm now being considered fair game?
I think it's purely speculation at this point. Obviously, we want the investigation to run its course and determine the motive and reasons behind this crime. I think that's the best way to leave it.
Just in response to that, I think it's very difficult to start talking about who's in a gang and who's out of a gang. I think it's a very emotive subject, not one really that helps the investigation. The circumstances of this particular shooting have been outlined by DCI Pedro, and you can read between the lines as far as that's concerned. But I don't think it helps to say whether an individual is a member of a gang or not a member of a gang. what we're talking about here is a vicious shooting that has taken place in the early hours of the morning. Whether the victims are members of gang or not, I think is really at this time not something that we need to go into.
Yeah.
Can you comment on whether the two victims were related to each other? What were they doing on the bike together at that point?
Again, that forms part of the investigation, but we're looking at the reasons for their presence in the area and them being together. That all forms part of the investigation.
Simon, last question.
In the past, in St Monica's area, there have been police on duty on a regular basis around the clock. Is it possible to say at this time, at 5:30 AM on Saturday morning, were police in the area?
Certainly it forms part of our regular patrols, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt that the officers did patrol regularly in that area during the course of the night, right up until very near the time of the shooting. So, St Monica's is somewhere that is visited heavily and frequently.
Okay.